there must be something that goes along with the idea that you're creating a character in a Disney movie, because these things last.
Well, you hope that they certainly do.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some that don't, and there are few that do, and when they do, they're very special, right? In terms of being a part of the Disney canon, one of my first memories of being struck by this whole thing of wanting to be a performer was about 1993, and I'm sitting in a dark theater and I'm watching Aladdin and I'm watching Robin Williams, and I'm, as is the rest of the audience, on the floor at this insane genie character. And I looked over at my mom and I said, I want to do that one day. Meaning I want to be the comic relief sidekick in one of these Disney films. So to then get that phone call saying, you are that guy, I had to hold the phone down because I was sobbing with joy.
How realistic was it when you look at your mom and say, I want to do that one day? Kids say that sort of thing all the time.
Kids say that thing all the time.
Yeah, like how realistic really were your dreams at that point? And what was the moment at which you went, oh man, this is actually happening?
It's funny because you fast forward from that moment into about 2004, 2005. And I was about 3 years out of college, and I called my mom up and I said, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And she started crying.
Wow.
And I said, I'm going to go to law school, thinking, my mother was going to celebrate that. She wouldn't have to worry about me anymore. And she was really disappointed. I said, why are you disappointed? And she goes, because you've been dreaming about this for 15 years, but you're only allowing yourself to live out your dream for 3, and I think that that's unfair to yourself. Right. And it was very startling to hear her say that. And a week later, I got my first big break on Broadway, doing a show called the 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. Yeah. And I guess it was at that time that I realized I was going to be okay.
Right.
Book of Mormon was the point at which I realized I had reached a new level, that I was really that I had made it. Yeah. That I wasn't a working actor anymore. I was an actor who was a part of something very special, and that would afford me more opportunities to do what I dreamed of.
Can I ask what it was that made you think you wanted to leave?
It was the uncertainty of failure. It was the constant rejection. It was the idea that if I ever wanted to have a family and raise kids, I was going to need to be accountable and responsible, and this wasn't a profession that would allow me the consistency to do that.
Right. Which are things that, for a young guy to be thinking, I think is sort of forward-looking. In your 20s, typically you're like, woohoo!
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, looking back, I definitely was a schmuck, because it's like, I've known people who have given this 13 years and have not, quote-unquote, made it. And they're still pushing because it's their dream. And it was my dream. But I also felt an enormous responsibility to be pragmatic and practical about life and know that dreaming doesn't pay the bills.
Right.
But my mother, God bless her, allowed me to keep dreaming.
I think maybe that's the perspective of someone who is older, who's been, has more life experience. And
right.
Because I know if I was talking to, at my age now, if I was talking to a much younger person, I'd say, you know what, screw it, have fun. Get out there and go do it. Because once you hit a certain, really, seriously, when you hit a certain age, it becomes so much harder.
Yeah.
So you've got the chance to do it now. Get out there and do it.
Exactly. And having said that, I was also very, very fortunate and very lucky. And so much of what we do is about luck, and I was in the right place at the right time. There happened to be a once-in-a-lifetime role that I fit the bill for, that I was I was inserted into that. Had that not been there, I don't know what my story would be.
Yeah. Being a star on Broadway is different than fame almost anywhere else. I think too. It's it is a whole world unto itself that exists. In such an ecosystem, but it's such an interesting thing. I mean,
which makes it so incredible that the thing that people recognize me for the most is still the Book of Mormon, because it is something that you don't translate theater or any sort of theatrical endeavor to fame and to stardom, and yet that show was a platform for just that. And I'm startled when people stop me on the street and they say, "You're the guy from Book of Mormon," because if you do the math, you're doing that show for 1,100 people a night in a dark theater where maybe 200 people can really make out your features.
Right.
So to leave that kind of impression, it's even more rewarding than any of the other stuff that I've done. Which brings me back to Frozen, which is I'm now a part of something that stands, hopefully, the test of time, and will still have a significance long after I'm gone. I think of Phil Harris, who played, amongst other characters, Baloo in Jungle Book. And that actor, well, a lot of us may not know his name, know that voice anywhere. And we know that character anywhere. And that character, as much as it did in the 60s when that movie came out, still brings us to tears, makes us laugh. I hope Olaf follows in those footsteps. Because those characters live on forever. I was just in the theme park and I saw this show, World of Color. It's this nighttime spectacular at California Adventure at Disneyland that is hosted by Olaf. And it was so surreal and out of body to experience that.
Well, this must be kind of weird too.
No,
I mean, we're sitting here with little Olaf
with plush dolls, and by the way, these are not even the ones that the voice comes out. There are ones that you push on it and the voice comes out, and my daughter has those, and so she is just tickled by this whole thing.
I was going to ask, is there any connection between Dad and Olaf yet for her, or no?
Here's what's so incredible.
Because she's very small.
She's small, but here's what's so incredible about it is she was 2.5 when I took her to see her very first movie in a movie theater, which was Monsters University. They played a teaser for Frozen, which featured just my laugh. Off of that laugh, she turned to me without me explaining any of this to her, and she said, "That's Daddy." And she said, "More Dada. I want more Dada." And I had to turn away from her because I was embarrassed by the tears falling down my face.
Yeah.
So yes, to answer your question, she not only gets it, but she is absolutely loving it.
I was at D23 this year,
right? Yeah.
So the Comic-Con, the Disney Comic-Con, and I've been at Disney, like everybody. I'm a Disney fan. I like the movies of it, but I don't have the ears, and that sort of thing. Right? I'm a casual Disney fan, I guess you'd say. But I was absolutely gobsmacked by the families that you would see, where there would be this one in particular, a grandfather who was, I think, clearly some sort of vet of Second World War, Korea, something, wearing camouflage Mickey ears, and his daughter was wearing and then his little granddaughter probably was wearing a little, a princess dress. And it's there are 3 generations there of people who take this very seriously, who are, who understand that there is sort of magic in those movies.
Well, let's take it outside of that and take it to the more casual observer. There's something profound to me about the fact that my grandparents were pretty much teenagers when Snow White came out, right? Or younger than that. It came out in the 20s. The influence that movie had on them was enormous. Then my parents kind of grew up during the 101 Dalmatians phase, the Sleeping Beauty phase in the 50s. Then my brothers grew up kind of in the 70s with, Jungle Book and Aristocats. And then I grew up with the second golden age of animation with Aladdin and Little Mermaid. Now, for my daughter's foray into this world, where there are only 53
which blows
animated
my mind.
Disney
You would think
movies.
there's hundreds, right?
That is so incredible to me. Is that it's a part of an experience that we all have. And that's almost a coming of age in the 20th and 21st century. Is everybody remembers their first Disney movie.
Yeah.